Chapter 7. Continued. I returned to that same entrance after school, and found Kirigiri sitting on the corner of the stairs reading a book. I stopped abruptly to observe her. Her eyes ran over the words with enthusiasm. Her face from the side looked so innocent that I could never tell just by looking at her that she was a detective who had solved a bloody murder case. She looked perfectly like a page in a picture book, sitting there after school, reading a book as other students hurried home all around her. Then Kirigiri noticed my gaze on her, and she looked up at me. "Were you watching me?" "Ah, sorry." I ran up to her. "You were just so cute." "Oh, you like to tease, don't you?" "What are you reading that you like so much?" "Wait, don't tell me. It's Soji Shimada's new work, right?" "No, it's a notebook." She showed me the black cover of the notebook. Oh yeah, now that she mentions it, I did see her with that before. She stood up from her step, patting off the dirt off the back of her skirt. "Everything I learned about detectives from grandfather is written in here." "I'm amazed that even at a time like this, all you can think about is research." This is my daily life." "Alright, well, considering where we're going, it might be for the best to brace ourselves." We departed from the building's entrance together, cutting across the campus to pass through the old school gates. We walked together silently, side by side, with nothing in particular worth talking about. Even the shopping district, with its Christmas music playing, was nothing more than an irrelevant backdrop to us. We waited at the bus stop for the bus to come. There was still some snow underfoot, which easily crumbled with the kick of a foot. I played around, kicking the snow like that as I waited for the bus. Kirigiri didn't join in even once the whole time we were waiting. The bus came. Kirigiri and I sat next to each other. Did the other passengers maybe see us as two schoolgirls who were good friends? I thought that I'd like them to. "So, has anything changed since then?" I asked. "Changed?" "I mean, it's not like we heard a bunch of secrets about the Victims' Catharsis Committee from Mr. Asakura or anything, right? I don't really understand the whole thing, but maybe if we know secrets about a huge criminal organization, well, we might be in their crosshairs now. That's just what I've been thinking about." "Well, there have been no particular irregularities in my surroundings." Did your grandfather say anything? I want to hear what his opinion is on all of this. You're like apprentice to him, right?" "Grandfather is currently in Los Angeles. I told him about the case over the phone, but he didn't seem very concerned, so I can assume this incident wasn't dire enough to draw his attention." Her grandfather was apparently a pretty big deal. Was this little girl going to grow up to be a famous, globe-trotting detective like him someday? But grandfather did mention one point of interest. And? It seems he was involved in the founding of the detective library. Huh? Hey, that's pretty amazing, right? How big of a detective family are you guys? I was surprised by her upbringing all over again. I knew already that her pride as a detective was completely out of the ordinary, but that was probably instilled in by her family, wasn't it? Seriously, what kind of place was the Kirigiri household? I mean, I'm from a pretty completely ordinary family myself. Well, despite that, you still say you'd risk your life as a detective. Where did you get such resolve? I wonder. Kirigiri watched me with eyes full of suspicion. Do you doubt me? No, not really. She turned to look out the window. You're still mad. I suspected you so much before, aren't you? Look, I'm really sorry about that. I'm not really mad. Oh well, that would be nice if it were true. The view outside the window gradually became a quiet, high-class residential area. There were large trees growing on the side of the road at regular intervals, and their barren, pointed branches reached up into the grey sky. It was a strangely deserted street. Next stop, Detective Library. Detective Library, announced the bus. I'll let you press the button to get us off, Missy Kirigiri. I never said I wanted to press it. Oh, well, I'm gonna press it then. Are you okay with that? Go ahead. No, let's press it together after all. On 3. Just hurry up and press it. It was just a joke. I leaned over her to press the button by the window. The bus stopped soon after. We stepped out into the cold, peaceful breeze. Something was clearly off about the atmosphere in this town. A tall fence spread out before us, and past it I could see an old building that looked like a haunted house. We walked along the fence towards the detective library entrance. At last we reached the iron gate supported by 2 exaggerated columns. The gate was slightly open, showing a Western-style front porch beyond it. We carefully walked up the stone steps, still covered in snow. "Have you been here before?" I asked. "No, this is my first time." "You didn't come here when you enrolled?" "Granddad took care of everything for me." "Oh, I see. Well, the detective library might be a place for you to hone your craft." Kirigiri nodded. "At first I myself wasn't sure what the point was in enrolling, but after listening to your explanation, I think I more or less understand." "What do you mean?" "If I want to be recognized as a detective, becoming 0 class is the only way." Kirigiri's expression was stiff. I finally felt like I understood her. She really isn't anything but a detective. I'm sure her circumstances must have something to do with her grand-scale home environment, and there's probably some reason for her strong wish to be recognized as a detective too. "People will value you even if you just be yourself. You'll be fine, so don't worry too much about that part, okay?" Kirigiri just averted her eyes, apparently with no intention of listening to me. "Being a high-ranked detective doesn't necessarily mean you're a good detective. I mean, just look at people like Ko Inuzuka." "But it has value in itself in order to sell myself as a detective." "Sell yourself? You sound like you have a specific market in mind." Kirigiri, instead of responding, went ahead to open the door and go inside. I hastily followed her. As soon as I went through the door, I was hit with the fragrant aroma of old wood blocks. The detective library itself had only about 10 years of history, but I heard that the building it was housed in had been used as a library before that for over 50 years. Kirigiri stepped through the next door and then stopped in her tracks, looking around. It looked like she was already lost. "Hey, Kirigiri!" I called out from behind. "Let's go up to the front desk and try getting our cards renewed. We might have gone up in a rank after solving that last case." I suppose." Kirigiri began to walk alone, stopped abruptly, and then waited for me. Maybe she'd decided she should let me lead the way. I brought her with me to the front desk. These days, with libraries going digital, lots of them have fancy circulation desks that make it look like you're in a bank or a hotel. The detective library, however, looked like just the good old analog library. The staff members working behind the counter were wearing white shirts with old-fashioned black arm warmers too. I'd like to renew my card, please." I took out my card and set it down on the counter, addressing the worker. He looked to be about in his 50s with sunken cheeks. I got the impression he was a true literary type. He looked down at me for a long moment and then picked up the card, spending another long moment looking down at that. "Please wait just a moment." He slowly got up to his feet and headed towards the computers behind the counter. I could see about 3 computer monitors in all. He watched one of them as he slid my card into the slot. "There is an update. Please wait a little bit longer while I get you a new one. Would you like to keep the same photo?" Yeah, that one's fine." "Understood." "Oh, actually, while you're at it, can you look at her card too?" I asked and gestured for Kirigiri to present her own card. She took her card out of her notebook and held it out to the worker. "Please wait about 5 minutes." I looked around idly as we were waiting. The counter was in its own room, with the doors on either side. If we went through the door into the next room, we'd find the shelves with all of the detective's files. There were a few workers behind the counter taking care of some kind of desk work. Nobody spoke a single word unnecessarily. I felt like I should be holding my breath as long as I was there. The detective library professed to be neutral, with no ties to any organisation, but I still had to wonder who exactly these staff members were. When I really thought about it, it was eerie, the way they worked like silent machines. "Alright, they're ready." The man came back to us with 2 cards in hand. We accepted them. Yui Samideri, DSC number 887. "Oh, I went up in rank! Woohoo! That's great!" I said, spontaneously jumping for joy. "Shh! Quiet in the library," chastised the worker. "Oh, sorry." I apologised in a whisper. It's thanks to Kirigiri here that I went up in rank. I mean, I didn't really do anything. How's your card looking, Kirigiri?
I went up in rank too.
Kyoko Kirigiri, DSC number 917. Amazing! You ranked up twice! Quiet. Sorry. I apologised again. It's a pretty big deal for you to be rank 7 when you're a first year in middle school. You might even be the first one Detective Library's ever seen. You really are amazing.
At this rate then, I'll need to solve 4 more cases on the level of Sirius Observatory's case in order to become a 0 class.
Kirigiri was as composed as ever. I guess, but, you know, I can still congratulate you for now. I guess I let a newbie catch up to me in rank. But isn't it pretty cool that we're a team of rank 7 schoolgirl detectives?
A team? I don't recall establishing any such thing.
Well, I was just saying that because it would be what people looking at us from the outside would think and put on headlines and stuff, I blurted out. At any rate, I was glad that we both went up in rank. I was as happy for Kirigiri's talent being recognised as I was as happy for myself. Aren't you happy?
I am.
Well then come on, show me a smile. Why don't we take a photo to commemorate the occasion?
I was taught to restrain my emotions as much as possible,
said Kirigiri, looking away and sliding her card back into her notebook.
And I've thought of a better idea. An idea to get us closer to the Victims' Catharsis Committee.
Eh? You're sure busy thinking about your next move even during a celebration.
You were the only one celebrating.
Well, yeah, but...
Please bring me to the room with the detective files.
Right. As you wish, my lady. I walked past the counter to open the door on the far side. There was much more to see in here. It was a forest of detectives. With the high vaulted ceiling, the lines of bookshelves looked almost like trees. Only, instead of dense green foliage, they were full of detectives' profiles. Roughly 65,500 detectives blocked off even the light from the windows, making it dim where we stood. The bookshelves bore plates indicating the DSC numbers. Visitors could consult these to find the detective they were looking for. There were in fact several visitors other than the two of us. From divorce issues to lost dogs, murders to international affairs, all sorts of problems plagued the people gathered here. So, what's your idea?
I realised something upon rising in the ranks. It has to do with the relationship between the difficulty of the case solved and the numbers of ranks achieved.
Yeah, and?
Well, we can use the Sirius Observatory case that we were both involved in as a reference point.
Mm-hmm.
Have you still not realised?
I hummed, crossing my arms.
The Sirius Observatory case was carried out using tricks prepared by the Victims' Catharsis Committee. Upon taking care of it, I rose 2 ranks, but fortunately or unfortunately, that was due to the fact that I stumbled upon a case of fixed difficulty, guaranteed to raise rank if solved, by chance. On the other hand, you never encountered such a case until now, and thus you went up only a single rank over the course of 3 years.
They do say that stumbling upon cases is the mark of a great detective, but...
From that, my conclusion is, among high-ranked detectives, perhaps there are those who have accepted a duel noir before, particularly those who are high-ranked but were registered relatively recently.
Oh, I get it.
There may even be detectives who have taken care of not just 1 or 2 duel noirs, but many more.
There are. There has to be. Was that what Mr. Asakura was trying to tell us?
Let's look for detectives of interest.
Kirigiri moved through the bookcases, looking up at the DSC number plates. She went straight towards the 000 shelf, namely the bookshelf for all the 000 class, all general rank 0 detectives. It was the furthest bookshelf from the entrance, small and looking almost like a throne, or perhaps a storage for a secret treasure. It held 3 files. This is just hearsay, but apparently there used to be 4 000 detectives, before one of them was deleted from the registry. Nobody knows why. I whispered to Kirigiri. Kirigiri silently picked up one of the files. The papers were kept in a high-quality leather binder. A name and a DSC number was written on the spine. Geka Ryozuji, DSC number 000. The 3 zeros were sparkling. She opened the file to the first page, which was the standard detective library form resume. The headshot looked younger than what I had imagined. Cooler too. He didn't have a frail and bookish, but more of a romantic lead who looked good with masculine slick back hair and a beard. Judging by his date of birth, he was currently 42 years old. He's solved a tremendous number of cases, hasn't he? Of all the 3 000 class files, this one had the most pages. I'm pretty sure this guy is the armchair detective that they call the Armchair Earl. He doesn't waste any of his time going to the scene of the crime or investigating personally, so he can solve this many cases just from his desk.
Quite a reckless detective.
You can't talk about a 000 detective that way, I rebuked.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Kirigiri apologised meekly. That's right, you can't forget to show respect.
How about this one?
Kirigiri picked up the next file. Johnny Arp, DSC number 000. Oh, this guy's famous. He's American. I immediately flaunted my knowledge. He's the only private detective in Japan that's authorised by the police to carry a gun. Well, I don't know much about the circumstances myself other than that the police and the FBI made some deals. Apparently, while he's here in the country, he's a law enforcement official, not a detective.
Oh, I know him well.
Oh, really?
Yes, he taught me how to fire a gun in America.
Oh. Wait, huh? You know him personally?
Well, I don't know if he remembers me, though.
I can't believe there are people who just know a 000. Oh, look at his picture. He looks like Brad Pitt. You should introduce him to me.
Oh, he normally lives in New York. Can you speak English?
All I could do was go quiet with nothing more than that to say.
I didn't know he was a 000.
Kirigiri set down Johnny's file and picked up the third. Rei Mikagami, DSC number 000. When she opened the file, the blank resume was glaring. There was no headshot, there was no gender identified, and the age was unknown. There were a few solved cases listed, but each and every one of them was a bizarre crime that had captivated detectives and mystery maniacs the world over. For example, the murder at Road Hill House in England, or the Great Lakes serial dismemberment murder case that spanned Canada and the USA. Cases that even I had heard of.
We can't draw any conclusions from these files.
Kirigiri put it straight back on the shelf.
There isn't even any contact information. Do you think perhaps that we could get one of the employees here to call them for us?
No, they can't do that. Employees can't be a direct go-between for detectives and clients. But we could go to the counter and leave a note for the detectives there.
I guess it can't be helped.
Kirigiri toyed with her braid, looking displeased.
But I believe the triple class may be too extraordinary to be the sort of detective we're looking for.
So should we try looking at the doubles?
I suppose.
We picked a bookshelf at random. 000's have a 0 for their secondary specialisation and a 0 for their rank, to show that they are the highest level detectives. Their primary specialisation isn't a 0, so you just have to look for them within each of the section of the shelves, or you won't be able to find them. As if wandering through the forest of detectives, we walked and gazed at countless files. I heard there are about 20 000's.
Well, that's quite a few.
But that kind of talent has to be, running 3,000, right? If you think of it that way, triples and doubles really are both out of our league. I sighed heavily. After that, we took about an hour and picked out 7 00 detectives, particularly those who had been first registered more recently. Is one of these people really going to be someone who took part in a duel noir? We moved into the reading room and looked through the case summaries in the files. But of course, it wasn't recorded whether or not any of these were a duel noir. All we could do was decide which seemed likely to be one. I guess they don't show direct contact info for the doubles either.
What should we do?
Kirigiri asked, leaning forward and peering into a file in the seat next to mine. Well, all we can do is leave a note.
The detective library was incredibly analogue. Even now, in the age of email, they expected us to leave handwritten notes. Kirigiri and I worked together to compose a memo to the double detectives. The contents were incredibly simple. We thought that would draw their interest more.
I would like to know something about the Victims' Catharsis Committee. I request to get in contact with you. Yui Samideri.
That should do it.
I left the memo at the counter and went on to leave the detective library. Well, let's head home, little Miss Kirigiri. Kirigiri nodded and followed after me. We passed through the gate and stepped out onto the street, wintry wind blowing. We walked together to the bus stop to wait for the bus. You don't live in the dorms, do you? Do you commute from your family's house?
Yes, Granddad has been looking after me.
Huh? What about your mum and dad?
They're both gone,
said Kirigiri, looking down at the road. Sorry for asking a weird question like that. Actually, didn't she have a complicated reaction to the subject of her grandfather before? Maybe I should just lay off on talking about her family. The bus came, and just as we had done on the way there, we sat next to each other. Partway through, Kirigiri pressed the button to get off. The next stop is closest to me. Okay, I'll let you know right away if any of the double classes contact me.
Kirigiri simply nodded once, not even saying goodbye before she got off the bus. What a difficult girl. But she was a very honest girl, I thought. Her earnest single-mindedness towards the detective job and lifestyle couldn't be explained away by a mere sense of duty. She just had a pure love for the job. The view outside the window had already started to get dark. I got off the bus at the shopping district and walked the rest of the way home. Scattered Christmas trees adorned the streets. It was almost Christmas. And before that, the final exams for the semester. And after that, it would be winter break. Was I going to be eating chocolate cake by myself for this Christmas too? The days passed, and winter break came without any response to our detective library note. As soon as winter break came, the dorm became completely deserted. Everyone had gone back to their families. Winter break is relatively short, so plenty of girls went home the instant the break started. Personally, I didn't feel like going home. My parents both work, so it's not like a heartwarming family reunion would be awaiting for me if I did. There wasn't really any reason for me to visit. Christmas in the dorms again, huh? I lay in bed staring up at the same old ceiling. And as I did, the face of Kyoko Kirigiri popped up into my head. I wonder what she's up to. I should have gotten her contact info. I wonder if she has a cell phone. A sudden thought struck me. If I went to the detective library, wouldn't I be able to find her contact info? The newer the detective, the more likely they were to have that information listed in their file. They'd be able to take on jobs more easily that way after all. I rushed to the detective library. The detective library was quiet as always, but there were more visitors than normal. Maybe more people had problems towards the end of the year. Do I have any messages? I tried asking the person behind the counter, but I was out of luck. So I went to go check out Kyoko Kirigiri's file. The Serious Observatory was already here in her case record without any delay. A phone number was written on her resume, so I copied it down and left the library. When I returned to the dorms, I gave her a call. I could hear an old man's voice through the receiver. Yes, hello?
Hello, this is Yui Samideri. I go to the same school as Kyoko Kirigiri. Miss Kyoko was a great help to me earlier.
Miss Samideri, the detective, right? It seems like you're a help to my granddaughter as well.
No, I really owe everything to her.
I see.
Went along with it, seemingly amused. This was probably her grandfather. Had he made it back home from Los Angeles?
Is Miss Kyoko currently available?
I'll hand it over to her now.
And not a moment later, it was Kyoko's voice coming from the receiver. Yes?
Ah, Kirigiri.
Big Sis Huey.
Yeah, it's been a while. Hearing her voice again after a few days was an instant pick-me-up.
I don't think it's even been a week.
That doesn't matter. Can you come to school the day after tomorrow?
It would be possible for me to arrive there.
Ah, then meet me at the front gate at 7 p.m.
The gate will be closed at that hour.
Not on the day after tomorrow. Oh, and why is that, you may ask? Well, you just have to come and find out. Don't miss it. I hung up before she could answer. I bet I threw her off just then. I went to bed imagining the look on her face. The snow came and went throughout the promised day. There and gone again. The sky was laden with grey, and yet today felt like the one day that it might just be permissive. I leaned against one of the pillars of the school's front gate, waiting for Kirigiri. It was just about to turn 7 p.m. The small snowflakes reflected in the headlights of cars passing by on the road in front of me, illuminating the cold night sky. My breath lingered in the air as a white puff, after I tried to warm my freezing fingers. And at last, Kyoko Kirigiri crossed the street towards me. She appeared out of the snowy darkness wearing a coat over a normal school uniform. Sorry for calling you out so late. I waved to her as she approached the gate.
The answer is that they are having Christmas Mass today, Kirigiri said, her hands staying in her coat pockets. The answer to your earlier telephone quiz, that is. As you hung up before I had the opportunity to answer, I came here simply to say that. Well, I'll be off now then.
She turned, and really did start heading back down the way she came. Wait a minute.
What?
Kirigiri turned back around. There was no change in her expression. If anything, she looked even more antisocial than usual. Can you just forget about your daily life for one day and come along with me for my daily life instead?
What do you mean?
Don't worry about it, I said, grabbing her arm and pulling her through the gate. From what could be seen of the church, it seemed that Mass was already underway. The lights were turned on, unlike most nights, making it shine amid the falling snow. The fact that it was the only thing that could be faintly be seen through the darkness made it look incredibly illusory. This way, I beckoned Kirigiri. The front entrance to the school was already open. It was usually shut at this hour, but it had been left open to let the choir use the classrooms for Christmas prep. But the power was off, and the building was dark.
Is this where we're going?
Kirigiri hesitated to enter. Yep. Not afraid of ghosts, are you?
I do not believe that there are any ghosts present.
You haven't heard? Actually, they say there are a lot here at night.
You're lying. Such a thing is implausible and illogical.
Kirigiri vigilantly observed her surroundings. Was it just me, or had she gone stiff too? It's fine, see? I gripped Kirigiri's slender wrist and walked down the pitch-dark hallway. Holy night though it may have been, it was eerie being in an empty school building at night. If we do see a monster, I wonder if it'll be a ghost turkey or Santa Claus with a hatchet or something. I brought Kirigiri up the stairs. When we made it to the top, I forced open the door that greeted us.
How did you open that without a key?
There's a trick to it actually. If you jiggle the doorknob up and down, the lock will come loose.
I see.
We stepped out onto the roof. It was covered in a thin layer of snow. Needless to say, there was no sign of anyone around. On this Christmas night at least, we were the first to set foot on it. We went up to the fence together, looking down towards the church. It was like one big lamp lighting the area. We could see people going to Mass. Girls in school uniforms, parents with their children, and boys and girls coupled off together. See? Isn't it pretty? I stole a glance at Kirigiri to try and read her reaction, but she remained stoic, looking down past the fence with the same expression as she always had. Hey, Kirigiri, maybe you can't tell, but I'm really thankful for you, I said, and at last she inclined her head to look at me. We met in the worst way, but I'm still glad that you were there with me. It's like, I've been working as a detective and going to school all this time, but I still just felt off, no matter what I did. Like, why the heck am I doing this detective thing anyway?
Ah, I see.
I I never told you this before, but I lost my little sister when I was younger.
Kirigiri watched me wordlessly.
She was kidnapped and then murdered before we ever got her back. That case is still unsolved. So, yeah, that's why I became a detective. I felt so guilty that I couldn't protect my sister. What if I had been kidnapped instead? We looked so much alike. The more that I think about it...
I couldn't summon the words to finish the sentence. I threaded my fingers through the fence and looked up at the distant snowfall.
Sometimes I just start to lose sight of why I'm still a detective. Of course I want to be useful and help people out when they're in trouble, but maybe I'm just fooling myself. Or that's what I end up thinking anyway. Maybe I just want forgiveness and I'm just distracting myself from the truth with detective work. But when I look at you, it just seems that like a stupid half-baked feeling. I don't understand your reasons for being a detective, but you're just so brilliant at it. I thought I might want to learn from your straightforward attitude.
My reasons for being a detective? Kirigiri murmured, looking up at the snow with me.
You've never thought about it?
No, came the immediate reply.
Huh, you're so cool. You're born a detective. But maybe one day you'll start to doubt yourself like I do. And if that ever happens, try to stay pure, the way you are now. I just wanted to tell you that one thing.
The church door opened, and a candle-bearing choir of singers began lining up outside the door. It seems like the mass was over. The candle lights flickered like signposts leading to the school gates.
Oh, right, I have something for you.
I took a small paper bag with a ribbon seal from my coat pocket and handed it to Kirigiri.
What's this?
Your Christmas gift.
Can I open it?
Sure.
Kirigiri received the bag, teared open the seal, and took out the present inside.
This is called a rose in vitro. I thought it felt just like you. You're not mad if I say that, are you?
Kirigiri's eyes were sparkling. She shook her head.
This... Oh, thank you. It's very beautiful.
Her cheeks seemed to redden slightly as she stared at the rose intently. It seemed she liked the gift. Snowflakes drifted onto the Vitro tube, making the glass look crystal clear.
About that, Big Sis Yui.
Yeah?
Am I the replacement for your dead sister?
Kirigiri stared past the rose in vitro and gazed at me.
What are you saying? There's no such thing like that. That's not possible. You're you. How can someone replace my dead sister?
Is that so? Good.
Do you understand me?
Yes, I understand,
Kirigiri said, hugging the rose to her chest.
By the way, I must also thank you, Big Sis Yui, for believing me during that incident.
Well, I haven't really done anything worthy of your thanks.
I was a little embarrassed, but quickly denied it. Suddenly I remembered the events on that night.
As a matter of fact, we still haven't done what we promised that night,
I said while sticking out my right hand.
What promise?
Oh, well, you said a true handshake should be left for when all things are said and done. Do you remember that?
Kirigiri nodded and took a step closer. She held out her small hand, our cold fingertips gently intertwined.
Please take care of me, Kyoko Kirigiri.
Take care of me too, Big Sis Yui.
At that moment, the phone in my coat pocket rang. I took a look. It was an unknown caller. I glanced at Kirigiri. She nodded, and I pressed the accept call button.
Hello?
There was no response.
Hello?
I repeated, listening for any response. At that moment, there was the sound of some grand and majestic music at the end of the telephone line. The music got louder and louder. This piece of music. Isn't it Wagner's Flight of the Valkyries?
As soon as the music grew in volume, there was a rumbling sound coming from an unknown source. The sound didn't come from the phone receiver, but from the snowy grounds where we were. Red and white lights shone starkly in the darkness. The source for this unabashed noise was none other than a large vehicle approaching us at an alarming rate. It was a helicopter. The polished grey vehicle hovered to our heads. The wind pressure generated by the propellers blew our hair all about. Kirigiri held her skirt down with one hand, the other hand tightly gripping the railing. Taking a closer look, there was a man standing with his legs wide open on the hatch. He wore a form-fitting suit which was flapping up and down, his pretty tie fluttering in the wind. The most ridiculous thing about this was the bobble on his Santa hat flopping around.
Merry Christmas.
A male voice suddenly rang out from the phone. At the same time, the man on the helicopter exaggeratedly lifted the mobile phone on his left hand as if to gesture to me. What exactly is going on? The helicopter hovered in the air while approaching the school roof. Looks like the Flight of the Valkyries was the background music played on the helicopter, and judging from the trumpet in the man's right hand, a part of it was performed live. I stared stunned as the man with the trumpet jumped from the helicopter to the school roof. The man adjusted his suit and tie and adjusted to the helicopter, and the helicopter sped off into the distance. He then slowly walked towards Kirigiri and me. Who is he? Could he be a murderer sent by the Victims' Catharsis Committee? I huddled close to Kirigiri, poised and alert. Huh? This man, I recognize his face from somewhere. Just around 30, and a wild and unruly gentleman.
And hello to you, two lovely detective teenagers.
Could you be... That's right.
I am the great detective with the alias The Fastest Passion, Allegro Agitato, Susei Nanamura.
Previously, we left notes for the 00 detectives in the detective library. He was one of them, Susei Nanamura. His DSC number was 900. A class 900 detective is something of a rare sight. Could it be about Duel Noir?
Oh, of course.
Susei Nanamura took out a black envelope from his inner suit pocket. As expected, we managed to meet someone related to the Victims' Catharsis Committee. But what was unthinkable was the arrival of the revered 00 detective, and his way of arrival was completely unexpected. Looks like the house can't wait to welcome us. I took the envelope and studied its contents with Kirigiri.
This incident was enough to summon a 00 detective, and it may turn out to be a miserable experience for two rookies like you, but do you want to come with me?
Kirigiri and I exchanged a glance, then nodded at the same time. Of course!
A message for the detective. Heed the cry of the noir. Location: Norman Hotel. 80 million yen. Weapon: knife. 5 million yen. Weapon: revolver. 15 million yen. Weapon: hammer. 3 million yen. Weapon: rope. 3 million yen. Weapon: automobile. 10 million yen. Trick: locked room. 100 million yen. Trick: disappearing act. 100 million yen. Other: cash. 1 billion yen. Total cost: 1,316 million yen. According to the above cost, the following detective is summoned. Susei Nanamura.
To be continued. End of Danganronpa Kirigiri, Volume 1.